Have you heard of anybody who has attended 2 classes in 1 year? By this, I'm not meaning that from January to June he's in one class and then from July to December he's in another class. No, I'm talking of someone being in 2 classes in 1 year. These are some of the stranger than fiction stories, but as strange as they may seem, they really happened on 2 occasions. It happened with Gaisere and it happened with me. But first of all, before I explain, I'll start with Gaisere and then I'll talk about myself. In the 60s, in Kajiado, I do not know whether in any other places we had such an arrangement, but in the 60s, in Kajiado, in day schools, not boarding schools, but in day schools, day primary schools, Standard 1 and Standard 2 shared a classroom in such a way that Standard 1 would start using the classroom at the normal time up to noon sharp. From 8 to noon, those are 4 hours. And Standard 2 would enter the same classroom at noon and leave at 4 p.m. You remember there used to be a song, Sasani saa sita, Sasani saa sita, kwaheri mwalimu. Those days, Standard 1, 2, and 3 used not to go back in the afternoon. They used to study up to exactly noon. And then Standard 4, 5, 6, and 7, they used to go back in the afternoon classes. But in Kajiado, and I do not know if other places also had such arrangements, but in Kajiado, day schools, not boarding schools, because in Kajiado I studied in both day school and boarding. In Kajiado, Standard 2 used to come in the afternoon and occupy the same classes that were used by Standard 1. So primary school used to have, day primary school used to have 6 classrooms. So when Kaisere completed his Standard 1, and it was time for him to go for Standard 2, he entered Standard 3. Meaning, the first year he was in Standard 1. The second year, when he was supposed to be in Standard 2, he enrolled in 2 different classes in the same year. He enrolled to be in Standard 2 at Ilbisil Primary School, and at the same time, he enrolled to be in Standard 3 at Ilbisil Primary School. Now in the morning, he would attend classes of Standard 3. At noon, he would attend classes for Standard 2. The same year, from January to December. Then, end of the year exam came, and he performed better in Standard 3 than what he performed in Standard 2. I do not recall the actual figures that he got, but let me give an example. For example, in Standard 2, he was number 5 out of 25. And in standard 3, he was number 3 out of 25. So the head teacher decided that he would go to standard 4. What I'm trying to say here is that the same year that he did his standard 2 is the same year that he did his standard 3. That is Major General retired the late Kaisere. Now coming to me. In those years, when you were going for nursery school, they used to ask you to hold your hand this way and hold the ear on the other direction. Now, if you had a big head, I believe I had it, you find that people of your age could do it, but you could not do it. But what they used to do was, they tell you to go and come back the following year. That was in Mombasa. So my father, instead of waiting for me to do it the following year, he took me straight to standard 1. He was wearing the police uniform, so I joined standard 1. In standard 2, he had been transferred to Kajiado. When he was transferred to Kajiado, for those of you who are residents of Kajiado, you know the school called Kajiado Township Primary. So I went to standard 2 in Kajiado Township Primary. And I used to stay with my mother. My siblings would go to school, the same school. But I would stay in the house with my mother up to lunchtime. That is when I would go and start studying in the afternoon, standard 2. But next to our house, there was a nursery school. In the 60s, nursery schools used to be different from primary schools. As I've said, that in the 60s, primary schools had 6 classes if they were day schools in Kajiado. I do not know of any other place, but in Kajiado, there used to be 6 classrooms. But in the whole country, primary schools and nursery schools were of different places, different campuses, if you can call it that way. I remember, if you do come from where I come from, the current Kwambu Primary School and the current Mutua Primary School were nursery schools. But St. Mukasa Primary School and Luandeti DEB were primary schools. So during the 60s, you would find that primary schools and nursery schools were never in the same compound. So in Kajiado, when I was in standard 2, I was going to Township Primary School for my standard 2. But next to our house, there was a church, a social hall, which from Monday to Friday used to be a nursery school. But if there was any occasion, social whatever, it was a social hall. And it also used to be used as a church. Now, this place was a nursery school. So in the morning, and one thing I would say that countrywide, I said standard 1 to standard 3, they used to go to school up to noon, exactly noon. Sasa ni saa sita, kwaheri mwalimu. But nursery schools used to go to school up to 11. Nursery school used to go to school up to 11 a.m. Standard 1 to 3 used to go up to noon. But in Kajiado, Standard 2 used to go back to school from noon up to 4. So I would wake up with my other siblings. As they went to school, I would go to the nearby nursery school, study up to 11, then go back home, change, and go to Township Primary School for my Standard 2. And during our time, that is why I usually tell people that I went to nursery school when I was in Standard 2. During our time in the 60s, nursery school used to be for singing and sleeping and taking porridge. So you'd go there, you sing, you are given porridge, and then you say, Watoto laleni, you are given blankets, you sleep. It reaches 11, you are told to go home. I would go home, dress in Township Primary School uniform, and then go to Township Primary School. This is the story of two people, Nkaisere and me, who attended two classes when they were in Standard 2. Thank you.